Okay, so welcome to this session on how to scale your business with group coaching. My name is Richelle, and I'm a group fitness instructor and content creator with ABC Trainerize. I'm extremely passionate about the power of movement just to bring people together and really create what I think is a transformative experience for people just in their daily lives. And my coaching business, Sunday Move Club, is all about helping people do that, just connect people through fitness in Vancouver here in the city where I live. So that's why I'm really excited because of that passion to lead this panel, this conversation today, and learn about how each of these incredible women that I'm about to introduce is building community through their own group coaching programs. So let me introduce our guests. First up, we have Eva Partridge, founder of Eva Partridge Fitness and host of the Lift with Eva podcast. Eva specializes in helping women transform their bodies and mindsets through strength training. After several years of coaching on the gym floor, she expanded into the online space, offering both one-on-one and group programs. Her mission is simple, and I love this, Eva, which is to get a barbell into the hands of every woman and empower them to train with confidence, clarity, and purpose. So welcome, Eva, and thanks so much for joining us today. And then we have Denise Kirtley. So Denise is the founder of Rebellion Body, where she empowers women to redefine midlife through strength, mindset, and sustainable transformation. After losing 50 pounds and becoming a competitive bodybuilder at 52, Denise turned her own journey into a mission to help women age with confidence and vitality. Her Rebellion Body method has inspired thousands and has been featured in Women's Health, CEO Weekly, and Top Wellness podcasts. And she's also the winner of the 2024 Nutritional Coaching Institute Impact Award. So congratulations on that, Denise. And thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's just dive right into it here. So since our topic is group coaching, I guess let's just start with why groups. So many coaches, I think when they first get into, especially online coaching, they start with one-on-one clients. But I'm curious, what made you decide to explore group coaching and what impact did that have on your business? Maybe we can go over to Denise first.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was very intentional about why I left a career of 26 years to go into the fitness space kind of later in life, which has been amazing. But I did that because I really wanted to have an impact, specifically in this midlife space where a lot of women need help sort of reclaiming themselves. And I knew that if I just had a one-on-one business, that was very limiting, right? You can only help so many people in a one-on-one structure. So we actually launched with one-on-one, and within the first month, our group coaching went live. So I basically started with both because I just really wanted to touch a lot of women's lives from the beginning.
That's great. Okay, you don't hear that often of people
No,
just
I know. I'm one of
but
those, if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to go. We're going to do it all at once.
no, I think that's amazing and definitely a great way to just kind of hit both those different needs, like the community, but then also that one-on-one, more personalized support that someone might need. So I think that's
Yes.
great. How about you, Eva? What got you into group fitness specifically or group coaching specifically?
I think for similar reasons. I think, like Denise said, one-to-one, you're always capped at your capacity. You can only help so many people. And also, one-to-one isn't for everyone. And I think because I coach women that are slightly younger, maybe between 20 and 40, and I actually started coaching a lot of students. Financial commitment is a big thing as well. And one-to-one comes at a higher financial cost. Not everyone can afford that, but they still deserve to have access to good programming, a coach in some capacity. So I think that's what kind of made me make that shift as well. So one-to-one was kind of maxing out, and it was a question of how can I help more people, but also who is my audience and how can I help them best. And it just made sense to have kind of a lower commitment, lower cost, lower touch point form of coaching for them to dip into, still get access to me, my knowledge and what I do, but something that was more accessible to them. And because it was more accessible, they could stay and commit for longer and ultimately get them better results. So rather than have 1 or 2 months of one-to-one coaching, they can have years of access to an app with good programming and lots of education as well. So I think that's what drove me. So I guess similar in that it just allows you to reach a wider audience of people and help more people.
Yeah, no, that's great. Definitely it opens up accessibility because you're right, personal training, it can be expensive. And we know, right now in the world, it is hard times for a lot of people. So I think the more we can open up something that should be accessible to everybody, which is, fitness, well-being, that's great. However, we can do that and create those options for people. Just a quick question, because I'm curious, and this is going to go to both of you. What were you doing before this, before you got into fitness? I'm just curious, were you doing something that was similar in the kind of the coaching, fitness space, or did you come from something else completely different? Maybe we'll go to Eva first this time, then over to Denise.
No, not at all. But I guess I did it quite young, like mid-20s, but as I finished university, did a history degree, which was utterly pointless, and was going to go into like the big four, tax, accountancy, that kind of thing. And as I was doing it, I was like, this is miserable. I really don't like this. Like, what else do I actually like doing? What am I genuinely interested in? And that for me was fitness. So I kind of pivoted and committed to that instead. But at a bad time, did it in 2020 when all the gyms were closed, like right before. So it took me a while to actually like get through things, do my qualifications. But yeah, not in the space at all, but also like at the start of a potential career. So I wasn't years deep into something else. It was still, a good starting point for me. I wasn't having to leave anything major like it sounds Denise did to join the fitness space.
Yeah, happened very organically. It sounds like you just kind of followed that passion and made a business of
Yeah,
it. It's great.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
How about you, Denise? It sounds like you were doing something quite different before this, maybe.
I was, and I had to kind of chuckle when Eva said that because I have a finance degree and I worked as an accountant right in the beginning out of college. I mean, this was a while ago. And then I actually did not like accounting, so I became a financial recruiter. So I would have recruited people like what Eva was saying she was looking to do, like Big Four CPAs. And I did that for 26 years in here in Los Angeles. I had my own actually recruiting firm that I stepped away from and I gave to my business partner. Um, and we did quite well. I mean, we were very successful, but it wasn't my passion anymore. And I actually felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. Like it was the first time in my life I felt like I'm supposed to be doing this. And so I just took that leap.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of fitness coaches, right? You just feel that purpose and that impact that drives you every day that sometimes, and not to say those other careers aren't good, but sometimes you don't have that purpose and passion that really drives you quite as much. So I'm glad that you both have discovered it now. That's great. And kind of speaking of that, I guess, especially coming from such a different business space, it sounds like you had your business before. So running a business is not necessarily new to you, but now that you've gotten into the coaching space, I'm curious, kind of between the one-to-one and then moving into group, what were the biggest differences in kind of the results or the way that you kind of ran that business? Or like, does it really differ between the two? This
It's
time.
interesting. When I developed our group coach, because I did them both at the same time, like we literally developed them side by side. And I really wanted to have a group coaching program that was a little bit higher touch. So I'm curious to see, what Eva's business is like. But ours is actually I always describe it as coach backed. So each woman that joins our group, we have 3 cohorts per year that are 12 weeks long, have a coach behind the scenes that is doing their custom macros. They start with custom macros that are, the coaches doing those. And then they get a couple of check-ins throughout the 12-week program. So it's almost like a hybrid of like a one-on-one in a group type program. But what's very interesting is, and I will say this is the biggest difference, in one-on-one, the women clearly have their main relationship is with their coach. And we do have a community where they can connect, but they are much more connected with their coach. In the group program, we're very active in the community. We have a community that they're all in, but there is something magical about these women starting the same day. Like they start the same day at the same time, at the same place. They are so engaged and connected. And that community, we have a separate community for our one-on-one versus group. Like I go into the group and it is active and they're like supporting each other and cheering each other on and answering the questions and it's incredible. And then the one-on-one's not quite like that because there's something about the starting at the same time and we all don't know anything and we're starting at the same time and we're in it together and it's incredibly bonding. So I kind of like our group more in some ways just because it's like there's this magical thing behind it. So I would say that from my observation, that is the biggest difference with our group coaching program.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that there is something bonding about that, right? Because if you're going in one-on-one and some people have been in the program or they've been with their coach for weeks or months, it's not going to be quite the same as just coming in from day zero, right? So
Yeah.
can definitely see how that could be bonding. How about you, Eva? Do you notice a similar kind of thing between your one-on-one and your group coaching, like different results or different, but both for the clients and for your business?
I'd agree in the sense that when you have the one-on-one, the relationship is definitely more with the coach. So the group chatting one-on-one it's difficult sometimes to get them like engaging with each other because they just don't know each other and their journeys can be quite, I guess similar themes, their journeys can be quite different. So they don't necessarily relate. Whereas when you have the group coaching, everyone joins for the same reason. My group coaching is a little bit different though. Mine's very low touch point at the moment. I'm planning on doing something similar to Denise next year, but it's very much like, here's your programming, here's all the information you could need. I'm here to ask questions. I offer a one-off call with them just to help give them a bit of a roadmap. It's very much like do it yourself. But I do a similar thing to Denise where I open up the doors every 6 weeks. So at least they're starting at a similar time, which I do think helps. It helps them know that they're kind of in it together. They're not a beginner and someone else is really advanced, which I think helps as well. We do try and chat in the group chat and people do generally get a bit more involved and share. And I don't always have to be the one in there prompting that. They are more likely to prompt that conversation themselves versus one-to-one where I have to really be the person to spark that conversation. So I do think in group, people are a bit more willing to be engaged with one another and maybe want that engagement as well. Whereas one-to-one, they've signed up to you and they want to speak to you. I think I find that difference. But equally with my low touch point coaching, I find some people genuinely do just want a program and they like the community, but they don't necessarily want to be active in it. They don't want to be active in a really group chat that is popping off all the time, but they appreciate that it's there. They read through it, but they're kind of ghosts. And they're busy women. They don't have time to be texting all the time. I think that's why some of them do sign up to something that is a little bit lower touch point. So I think it's great to have the community, but also like don't stress about it being OTT 24/7, because if they wanted that, they'd sign up to a program that provided that in a bit more depth and probably something more like Denise's. So I think it kind of varies depending on like what group coaching you offer as well. But results wise, I think results for one-to-one and group, they can be so similar. It's just, it depends what each woman wants. I don't think one gets better results and one gets worse results. It really depends on the person and what they need from a coach and a program.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, and we've kind of started to get into it a little bit, which is kind of talking about some of these different elements of both of your programs. But I want to get a little bit more kind of dialed in, a little bit nitty gritty, because I feel like people that listen to these love to just hear like the details of exactly how other coaches run their businesses, especially if they're new to the space or new to group coaching. They might want to, really get those little hairy details. So I'd love to kind of hear like, you're bringing people into your program. Let's say it's like day one, we're just starting off onboarding. What does like that first touch point look like? And how are you kind of bringing them into both your community and then that relationship with you as a coach as well? We can go to Denise.
Sure. So with our coaching program, so I launch it 3 times a year. And usually there's like that the door is open for a few days. Hopefully either we sell it or I stop the sale, but we've been close to sell it every time. I've been blessed. And then we start with an intake form. So we send them a very detailed intake form because like I said, this is coach backed. I have 7 coaches that work for me. So then from there, the coaches are able to actually customize their macros, determine which program, they're going to fit best with. We don't have a million programs that we use for group coaching. We have a beginner and intermediate program, both home and gym. And so they get whatever program, based on their intake form. And then the biggest touch point, frankly, is that we put them into a community and circle. So we do use circle alongside with Trainerize, and those are our 2 big things that we use for our group program. And what's nice about that is they get to meet each other right away before it even starts. I always prompt a question about like, where are you from? Tell us something about yourself. And that's when the women really get talking and getting to know each other before it even starts. Our group program is interesting because you need to have both Trainerize and Circle. Like we kind of force them into the community. You access the calls through the community. There's a lot of resources in the community. But I also think with my demographic of women, if you're a midlife woman, you've never lifted a weight in your life, you've never tracked a macro, you're like you're terrified. Like you're like this is really scary and not even that technical, right? Which is why I like Trainerize, because it's very easy to follow from a client facing standpoint. They can go in there and it's not intimidating. And the same with Circle. So for them having other people that are also terrified and have never done this before, I think it's even more important. So then they're in the community, they're using Trainerize to do all of their workouts and track their habits and all of the things, and we have all the demo videos, but then they're coming to the community and saying, oh, how did you do this or how did you do that? And they're feeding off each other. And so we use really those 2 things in tandem, and it's really worked out really well for us.
I will say it's really interesting with your demographic being a lot of women who have never lifted weights before in their life and now coming into this, because that is a very nerve-wracking space to be in.
It is.
And I'm actually reading a book on gatherings and how to host successful gatherings and create group dynamics and things like that right now. And one of the things that it said is that actually sometimes vulnerability and those like more, not negative emotions, but more fearful, those kind of what we would consider, I guess, more not positive emotions are actually much more bonding for a group sometimes than just like constant positivity. So that's really, because people identify and they can get down in the trenches with them, and that's motivating, right? So
yeah, it's amazing to see them interact. They'll be like, I really screwed up my macros today, or I don't know how to do this, or I did that. And then all the other women will chime in. It's okay. You got this, one day at a time. Just keep going. And it's really beautiful. I read a quote. It was so funny because I read this today and I wanted to make sure I shared it with you. It's Simon Sinek, if you follow him. And
yeah.
he said, a community is a group of people that decide to grow together. And I think that's what any group program should have, is a way for these people to grow together. And that really is what I have seen in our groups. Like these women, some of them are 100 pounds overweight. You know what I'm saying? Have never lifted a weight and they grow together. And it's beautiful. I love group programs. It really is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. No, and having people come together for such an important common cause, which is to better themselves. I think there's a lot of power in that. And being the one to lead that as the coach is a lot of responsibility, but also equally rewarding, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, how about you, Eva? Kind of like walk us through what that, I know we kind of started to get into it a little bit with the last question, but walk me through a little bit kind of, people come in, what that onboarding process looks like. They're connected with you, they're getting that one-to-one call, and then they come into the community, and then kind of what happens from there. Like, are you also giving, similar to Denise, like a little prompt to kind of help them interact, or like you said, is it a little bit more of them just kind of organically just popping in when they have questions, or do you do any kind of facilitating in that way?
Yeah, so I guess there's some similarities to how Denise does it and some differences. So I also open the doors every 6 weeks. I find that works a little bit better just in terms of how I can market it online. It feels a bit, less pushy than doing it 24/7. Doors open every 6 weeks. They're open for a few days. I start promoting it about a week before heavily. And it just, however many people sign up, sign up. There's no real exact numbers there. And then it is lower touch points. So how I structure things is they choose between a 3, 4, or a 5 day split. So the programming is the same. It's all based on my programming and kind of I'm 3 months ahead, trialing things, testing things, and that's how I promote it. And then I improve it for my group coaching program. So they'll choose what suits them. When they sign up, they get assigned to that program automatically. They also get a welcome email with a welcome pack, a bit of like a training fundamentals pack, just to give them the real basics around training, and a nutritional manual as well. So there's quite a lot of information at first. However, they then get a message, which is automated by Trainerize, just welcoming them to the program, giving them like a few housekeeping things, and just kind of saying like, don't worry about all this information. The main thing is like you just get going with the program, and we layer this information as you go. And then once everyone has signed up at the end of like the 3, 4 day period where the app's been open, I'll pop into the group chat, kind of welcome everyone, like give them a few key pointers around how things works, encourage them to introduce themselves, but I'm not going to force them either. And if I notice anyone is kind of slipping under the radar, I'll message them directly. So even though it's a group, I try not to let anyone, completely bypass the group element. They still get a bit of encouragement from me. And then around a week later, I'll pop another message in the chat. There's usually, some chats going on, but I'll pop another message in there saying, okay, we've had a week on the program. Hopefully things are starting to settle in. You're learning the basics. Let's then book that optional call. And it is optional. Not everyone, I think, feels like they need it. And it's just then to help them map out their kind of fitness journey and nutritional roadmap. So although it is more of a DIY program, I'm there to kind of say, okay, this is the information I've given you. Let's then work through it together and just make sure you've got some clarity on it. So we kind of map out when they might be at maintenance, when they might want to go into a fat loss phase, how they might structure that. So I just give them a loose structure to follow. And then I say, look, if at any point you feel a bit lost in a structure, just drop me another message and we'll kind of rehash things and walk you through it. So that's the kind of the main way I get them on board and what it looks like. And then I'll try and prompt the message in the group chat, get people talking. We've got a community challenge going on at the moment. I feel like they quite help get people chatting. Bit of a competition. I use the challenge feature on Trainerize where they collect points and offer prizes. So the prize at the moment is a month of one-to-one coaching with me. So just little ways to incentivize people to remain more active in the group chat is how I'm finding at the moment things are working. But I've only been doing this a year. I was definitely more of a one-to-one coach. It's still trial and error for me, really. So it's quite nice to have this conversation, listen to Denise and how she's doing things, and then learn from other coaches as well.
Yeah, the challenges feature is a great one, definitely, especially if the group, there's times I feel like as a group coach, there's times of ebbs and flows, right? There's times where the chat is maybe super active, there's something big going on, they're all excited, and then there's times where it's just a little bit, more quiet and silent. So I think a challenge is a great way to just get people kind of excited, remotivated again, especially as, the first couple of weeks, they're always really into it, fresh new program, right? And then as it kind of starts to go, that's a great way to pick up the energy. Have you tried that feature yet, Denise, the challenges feature?
No, and I was just listening to that, and I really want to look into that. I think that would be very interesting. And like there's some great challenges we can do. Midlife women want to do like a pull-up, so I could see doing like a pull-up challenge or something.
Oh, so
Definitely
fun.
look into that for early in the new year.
Yeah, definitely around the new year, we see a lot of people doing challenges too, because it's a great time to everybody's getting back in the gym, getting into your new routine. So definitely a great way for all coaches that are listening to this if you're looking to, just get that engagement up again. So we talked about kind of the onboarding and the start of the program, and kind of a follow up to that last question, challenges being one of them as a great example. What other touch points are you using to keep people engaged as they kind of move through your coaching? Like are you using certain tools, like certain, like I know you guys do group calls at the beginning, but are you doing regular group calls, things like that? And how are you using that to kind of keep people connected and consistent with your program? Maybe we'll go to Denise here.
Sure. Yeah. So the way that I have always presented well, I designed this program to be something that I didn't see in the market because I had a coach for about 2 years prior to me starting my company. And I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know why. Like I didn't have enough education around it to really make it sustainable if I wanted to not coach or to have a coach one day. So I always describe my program as it's a half of an education course and half of it is a group program. So I actually do education calls once a week with the women. And for 12 weeks, I go through every single aspect of transformation. So we talk about macros, basics 1 and 2 are the first 2 weeks, and it's weightlifting fundamentals 1 and 2. So it's on a live Zoom call with me. We do a lot of Q&A, and after I do the presentations, we do a lot of mindset work. And my goal is at the end, because my goal is impact. I don't actually want them to need me at the end. I want them to stay because they want to and they want to have a community. But if they choose to leave or have to leave because of financial reasons or whatever it is, I want to equip them with all the information they need to make a sustainable lifestyle. So we really focus on educating them on all of those things. So at the end of the 12 weeks, they can leave if they want to, and they will still be able to reach their goal and continue on. So that is one of the major touch points are these weekly calls, and they get to know each other and see each other. And then the recordings are available to them, and they have a companion PDF. So at the end, they have like a handbook of everything for transformation. So that's what I had always wanted to see, and I couldn't find in a coaching program. And then beyond that, the coaches, each coach is in our community every day. One coach is assigned to, each day of the week, and they'll post something educational or mindset focused or whatever, something that gets the group talking. So we're in there every single day. We have a Q&A section in Circle. So if anybody has a question about the program or their macros or whatever, they don't have a direct link to a coach. So they cannot message their coach. We've turned off that function actually in Trainerize. They have to go to the community and ask a question in the Q&A. And then one of us is in there and usually answers that question within an hour. So it's a very fast thing. But we've been able to do that because all the questions are captured in one section. We don't have to weed through people like, this is what I have for breakfast, or, that I'm having trouble with this exercise. We know where all the questions are. And by sort of isolating that, that's been really helpful. So many touch points throughout the week. I would say it's a very intensive 12 weeks in some ways. I feel like we throw them into the deep end of the pool a little bit, but by the end of the 12 weeks, truly, like it's hard in the beginning, but they see a massive change.
Well, there's a couple of things that you just said there that I want to highlight for the audience. And the first one is that you're not just giving them the how, right? Like you did with that coach that coached you previously. You're giving them the why, which is really the
Yes.
tools and the understanding to take those things and apply them in future situations, because not everything is going to be so black and white. They need to understand the education behind it. And the second thing I think is making that really intentional choice to turn off the chat feature between the coach and the
Yes.
client and making them come to the community, because not only is that really helpful, because lots of people probably have the same question, right? But it's also creating more engagement, creating, more connections between the people who are also coming in to be like, oh, great question and things like that. So I think that's great that you're really looking at those areas and being really intentional with the choices that you're making when you're designing that program. How about you, Eva? Yeah, I'd love to hear kind of like, how do you keep people, other than the challenges, how are you kind of keeping them consistent? And yeah, how often are you coming in with those calls or just other points that you might be using to keep them on track?
Yeah, it's definitely like interesting hearing how Denise does things. It's like kind of polar opposite to how taught my program is. So I'm making loads of notes from Denise, so thank you. But yeah, mine is definitely, like I said, less touch points. So the community isn't quite as active, but I'm maybe in there between 1 and 3 times a week trying to prompt things if I'm noticing that they're not chatting between themselves. And I really like that feature that Denise said she has, that she turns off the option to message the coach. And I don't have that at the moment. I kind of say, look, I want you to be active in the group chat. I want you to have the confidence to post in there. But if you don't, it's okay to message me. And then depending on the question, I'll say, do you mind me posting this into the group? And I'll say, I had a brilliant question from one of you guys. And I won't necessarily specify their name if they don't want me to, but I still then share the response so everyone can benefit. Because like Denise said, my program is very similar in that it's not just like, here's the program, here's the calorie targets. I really want them to understand why. So I think we probably have created our programs for a similar reason, that we've had these experiences with coaches. We've followed a program, it might have worked, but we're kind of at the end going, why did that work? I don't really understand. Like, and if I'm left to my own devices, what do I do next? So that's really my focus as well, and giving them that education. So we have the challenges, we have, the community group chat, people popping questions in there. I'll ask them how their week's gone, ask them to share something positive about their week, or if it's not been a great start to the week, what are they going to do? Like, it's only Wednesday, how can you turn this week around? Just get them to sound it out and really set the intention for themselves, because that's similar to what I do with one-to-ones. But obviously we don't have that one-to-one relationship in the same way, so I want them to be doing that in the group chat. So I'd say it's just like you kind of said, like noticing when things have got quiet, trying to prompt a bit of conversation, trying to keep them accountable, and using some of the Trainerize features as well. You introduce the self-check-in forms, which has really helped, because whilst my one-to-ones have check-ins, the group coaching doesn't, and it's not part of the program to have that relationship with me, to have a one-on-one check-in on the app. So having a self-check-in feature where I can create a form and say, look, if you guys want a self-check-in to keep yourselves accountable, let me put it in your calendar for you. Tell me what day you want to do that. And I think that helps to keep them engaged as well in the program.
Okay, speaking of that, actually, I probably should get into, I'm sure, more details people are curious to know, because you've talked a lot about these different touch points, setting up your programs, but how do you actually go about packaging and pricing your group coaching versus one-on-one? Because we didn't actually touch on pricing and things like that. So why don't we put on our business caps for a minute, and we'll talk a little bit more about that structure. So this time you can start off, Eva, then we'll go to you, Denise, afterwards.
Yeah. So for me, like I said right at the start, one of the big features was some of my clients are students. They're really young. They don't necessarily have the finances yet to commit to one-to-one coaching. So I wanted to go to the other end of the spectrum and say, okay, what can I offer at a reasonably low price point for people? So kind of my first step was to also like shop around, sign up to other people's apps, see what they're offering, see what their price point was in comparison to their offer, and just kind of find a middle ground there, and then see where I would want to sit in that. So for me, I felt like a lot of the bigger apps that were just training programs were kind of letting women down in the programming side of things. I just didn't think the quality was really there. So that's really what my program is geared towards, like giving you good progressive programming where you don't just click a random 4-week guide and then you start another one that doesn't make sense, and trying to piece programming together a bit more for women. So it was a case of, okay, this is what these apps are offering. This is their price point. This is what I want to offer. It's a lot more education. It's a little bit more technical in the programming. So I'm naturally going to be a small step up from them in terms of pricing. So it was just kind of finding what other apps were doing, I think, and figuring out where I would sit with that, what I would be comfortable charging people based on my knowledge of them and my audience. So yeah, I think just market research was a big thing of that, and what I feel like my knowledge is worth. On that DIY basis, on the, no one-to-ones. Whereas, I'm looking at doing something similar to Denise next year, which is that hybrid between a group and a one-to-one. And that is obviously going to be a pretty big step up from what I offer at the moment, but still below my one-to-one. So I think it's just, kind of staggering it in the context of what you offer, how much one-on-one time they get, all those kinds of things.
And that research phase is so important too, because when you're going in, I've done the exact same thing when I was designing my group coaching offers, is going in, downloading them all, doing the free trials, and you learn so much. You're like, okay, there's things I want to take from this. Then there's things where you're like, oh my gosh, that does not work at all for me, and I would never want to do that in my app, right? So it's such an important process to go through. So I'm glad that you talked about that. How about you, Denise? How are you kind of packaging and separating those different like pricings, different offers that's accessible and attractive for your kind of different demographics, I guess?
Yeah, sure. The process I went through, because it was interesting, I launched this company and I did something totally different before. So I went around and I asked I really based it first of all off my one-on-one, because I knew what people were charging for one-on-one. And I'd say we're not the most expensive, but we're not the least expensive, right? We're kind of in the middle, and I feel it's very fair. But I also know what I pay my coaches. So, as I went through this process, I kind of took that into account. They get a certain amount of money because this is a coach backed group program. And I really look at my program, my group program, like I said, and the way I market is it's half education course, because I'm doing those weekly calls. You're on a call with me, and then you also get the transformation for 12 weeks that's coached back. So we price our group program what is it, $225 under 12, the equivalent of 12 weeks for one-on-one versus group. Our group program's about $225 less for that 12 weeks. Um, and so I think it's priced really well because when you think about it, it's not as high touch as one-on-one, but you are getting the education. And so I felt that that was fair. And then when they continue on and they no longer have the education course, the difference between 12 weeks is $500. So it's $500 less if you're a group client versus a one-on-one client for 12 weeks. And I think for us, it's made a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, definitely just like diversifying your offers, right? And I'm curious, is there one that's more profitable for your business, like one-on-one versus group, like, or is it about equal for both of you?
For
I know
me,
that's the price point.
my group is more profitable.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Eva? Is that the same for you?
I'd say
Group?
mine's fairly equal because I'm just a one-woman band. Obviously, I don't have those costs of paying a coach and things like that. But at the moment, I'd say they're fairly equal. Over the course of the next year, I'd say I'm going to be trying to push my group more, especially in the online space. I'm not doing any face-to-face at the moment, but I love it. And I'd like to step back into that and then push group as more of my online business. So things are going to kind of, I guess, change in the next 12 to 24 months. But yeah, I'd say fairly even, but I quite like that. I like having the one-on-one element that takes up, let's say, 20 hours of my week, and then the group coaching, which is similar in terms of profit, but it's apart from the front end, which takes so much time to build. Once you've got it there and done, it's really low touch point. It doesn't take much time at all. So it just gives you a bit more flexibility back in your day to day versus when you're on the gym floor for 30 hours a week and you live and breathe that kind of stuff. So yeah, I quite like having the 50-50.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I guess we're kind of coming to the end of our panel here, which is sad because I have so many more questions. I could keep chatting about you guys with just like the logistics of your programs all day. But why don't we kind of go into just getting ready for some final takeaways and some things that you want to leave the audience with today. So I think that for coaches who are still mostly working in that one-to-one right now, they're grinding, they're putting, like you said, so many hours a week into this, and they want to just start building a successful group coaching model like both of you guys have done. What would you recommend as the number one step to getting started? And feel free to go, it can be more into like logistical, it can be more into, something more intention setting, like kind of coming up with your purpose or your why. So feel free to go either direction with that question. I guess Eva will go first. I can't remember who I asked first last time. So I'm gonna go, we'll go Eva, then we'll go Denise.
Yeah. I've thought about this question before the panel. There's so many things you can say, isn't there? Whether it's like the more strategic way or just like, more motivational. But I sat on the idea for so long. It was like a year. I was like, do I do this? Do I not do this? And it's just so easy to put these things off. So I think that the main thing for me, which is probably obvious, but I just eventually was like, okay, you just set a strict deadline on this. I set a strict deadline and I worked backwards week on week. What do I need to do to actually make this happen? So I think the planning side of things was really, really helpful. I think just actually like not being scared, just saying that I'm going to give it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I can just like tweak things. But I think the fear held me back for a while, like the overwhelm of it all, just from other coaches that I've worked with on the gym floor. I think that's similar to them as well. They just put these things off. So I think actually just like giving yourself a set deadline for me was like the number one thing I did to actually get the ball rolling and then work back and break it down week by week. What do I need to do this week to actually make this happen and make this, launch this side of my business? And just not being afraid if something goes wrong. It's so easy to be scared to fail. Like no one's going to sign up. If no one signs up, you just know you haven't quite positioned it right. And it's feedback then to then change it and try again a few weeks later. So in some sense, like the main thing for me is like just actually give yourself a kick up the butt to actually get this thing going and just learn from it as you go. And the second thing I think was just like the kind of the second part I say is like chat to your current clients, like what do they like about coaching, what do they need, and what do they have to say maybe, and like use them as a sounding board and ask them what they think would work. And when they eventually shift away from one-to-one coaching, what kind of support do they think they would need from you on a more continual basis to actually keep their fitness journey going? I think that was quite useful as well, chatting with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta make sure the clients actually want it, right? And what they want. I love that. Get them, talk to them, and then build that around that as well. How about you, Denise? Yeah, what do you, as number one step to getting started?
Well, I have two things to say, and I don't know if it's the number one step of getting started, but I think there are two very important things that I really believe in. One, I think the value has to be there. So I think whatever you do, you have to make sure that whatever you're pricing your product at, it has to be reflective of the value, right? It can't be ego pricing. It has to be value-based pricing. I price a pretty good, a pretty good price point for our group coaching, but I know the value's there and I know it can change your life, right? And it does. Two, I will say, I think the number one thing every coach needs to think about right now, and we've talked about it in this conversation, is community. The more that AI becomes more and more prevalent, and I've actually tested it, I've used AI to coach me, it's pretty incredible. So at the end of the day, what's going to keep people there? They're going to have, if they feel connected. If I know that we have people that stay with us because they don't want to lose the community. And I think we're going to see more and more and more of that. So I think every coaching program needs to have a community aspect. I think people need to want to be there for reasons beyond just the program and the macros or whatever else you're offering, because we're going into a very different time. And I think that that community aspect is very important. Community is going to be the theme of my business next year. And we're even looking at providing in-person opportunities to meet, because I think the more that we get away from people connecting because of AI, they're going to be craving that. And I show that in my social media. We just had a retreat this week. They see these women together, bonding, becoming friends, and they want to be a part of it. And so I think you need to think about why are people going to go there? They're going to go there for an experience, and that experience has to extend beyond just them alone working in in just the app. They have to have some sort of connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. I 100% more and more chat GPT programs, right? And what is the reason that somebody can't go to ChatGPT and get a program? Well, number one, it's your value that you're bringing as a coach, whether that's one-on-one or group, right? That's one thing that's really hard to replace, that accountability, that relationship. And number two, like you said, is that community. So I think that's kind of a great place to take that question. So both of you guys, thank you. I have one more question for you. This one I'm going a little bit off book, but just I'm curious, having been working in these groups, these communities of people who are changing their lives and taking these steps, is there one moment that sticks out as being very memorable? Maybe it was moving emotionally, maybe it was funny, but something that just really like lit you up and kind of reminded you why you got into this in the first place that you saw within your communities. We'll go to Denise first and then Eva, then we'll wrap up.
I have a woman who joined our group coaching in September of last year, and she tried to quit. We get about, so it's interesting, we'll get X number of people sign up for this 12-week group. And then this is just human nature. I'll get a couple of them that get scared before, and they'll email me and they'll say, I can't do this. Can I get a refund? And I always try and say, look, you deserve this transformation, right? You deserve the best years of your life. You deserve to get healthy. And then this woman, her name is Debbie. I've talked to her. She doesn't mind. I said, Debbie, don't quit. I'm here for you. We're here to support you. If you give it 100%, we're going to give it 100%. Like, let's do this. You can do this. So she said, okay. And she saw our photo shoot retreat last year. She goes, okay. And I'm going to be at that photo shoot retreat, which was this year. Debbie lost 100 pounds in the past year. And
Wow.
it was like, I saw her and I get teary-eyed thinking about it. Like, she is just beautiful. She is lit from within. I was like, this is why we do this, right? Like, anytime work gets hard, I think of like the Debbies. No GLP, like, there's nothing more satisfying. And she did that photo shoot and she looked amazing. And she told me her entire life has shifted. So yeah, that's the one that gets me.
Go Debbie. Okay, class for Debbie.
Yeah.
No, that's very inspiring. I love hearing about those kind of transformations. And yeah, it really is so special when you're able to be a part of that journey with somebody.
It's an
Love.
honor. Truly, it is an honor.
And how about you, Eva? Yeah, do you have a moment that kind of sticks out to you? Whether it could be one-on-one, it could be from your group program, but something that really kind of, yeah, reinforce that sense of community, maybe.
Yeah, I think something similar. I did a kind of iteration of my group program a few years ago, and as a very new coach, and it's kind of a similar story. Like, a woman came on board, she's tried lots of things in the past, wanted body recomposition, wanted to lose body fat, and because I'm not her one-to-one coach, I don't see her progress every week. And then just we obviously chat, and I would see her, I knew what was going on, but then one day she just sent me through these pictures, and I don't force anyone to take progress pictures. The options there on the app if they want to, but she just sent them off her own back, and like, she was so proud of herself and her own progress. She'd lost about 75 pounds, just with the information and the program. And she was like really grateful to me for helping. I was like, you've done this all, I've given you information, but this is actually on you. Like, you need to give yourself the credit for this. But I think just having that message, me not having to ask her to send it, and just knowing that she sent it because she was feeling good, feeling confident, I think that really, really sticks out. And it gave me the kind of the nudge to actually, like, yeah, group coaching does work. I think at first when you're in one-to-one, it can feel like a bit of a shift going to something that is low touch points. You think, oh, people won't get results doing this, they don't get as much help from me. But actually, not everyone needs that one-to-one hands-on support. And it kind of gave me the urge and confidence that, group coaching is a really good, viable coaching option, and it really does help women. I think that sticks out, kind of the earliest time that happened in my coaching career, to have someone do something like that and send me those kinds of results. And it gives you a boost as a coach as well. I'm sure Denise will agree, like, actually, yeah, I am a good coach, and I do know what I'm talking about, and the information I do have does really, really help people. And I think that stands out. And it just happens, more and more, and people send you messages saying, I'm so glad I stuck it out, like 3 to 6 months down the line, everyone has a bit of a wobble, and they kind of get to a point in the program and they go, oh, is this working for me, is it not working? And it's usually around like, say, the 3 to 6 week mark, where they've been doing it long enough where they think, I should be seeing some good results by now. But as coaches, we know it takes a bit longer than that to really see some significant changes, and you kind of have to give them that motivation to keep going. Give it another 6 weeks, and then messaging you saying, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I stuck with it, because this is actually starting to work now. And they just have to kind of trust you in that initial stage. So there's those kinds of messages, I think, that really stick out.
Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And I love that it was unprompted too. That's always the best kinds, when they're just so proud they want to share with you. They're excited. That's lovely. So thank you both again. And thank you everybody in the audience for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and check out some of our other ones. Thanks.